Do you ever feel full? Not full of food, but full of everything. Full of thoughts, full of worries, full of information, full of opinions, full of noise. So full, in fact, that it feels like nothing new can possibly squeeze its way in. Like your brain is a hard drive at 99.9% capacity, constantly flashing a warning sign you can't dismiss. That relentless mental clutter that leaves you feeling overwhelmed, scattered, and strangely resistant to anything that requires genuine attention or open-mindedness. In our hyper-connected, always-on world, we are constantly bombarded. Notifications ping. Headlines scream for attention. Social media feeds scroll endlessly. Emails pile up, and the sheer volume of information we could consume is staggering. We try to keep up, to absorb it all, to process the constant stream of data, expectations, and demands that pour into our lives every second. And what is the result? That pervasive feeling of being mentally overloaded, cluttered, exhausted, and reaching a point where genuine learning, real connection, or even a moment of simple, quiet peace seems utterly impossible. We're full to the brim, and then some. What if the key to handling this wasn't about finding a bigger cup? What if it was about understanding the one you already have? What if the problem isn't the amount being poured, but the state of the vessel receiving it? This ancient Zen story, deceptively simple in its telling, offers a profound answer to our very modern problem of mental overload, resistance to new ideas, and the inability to truly receive the world around us. It's a story that has resonated for centuries and perhaps is more relevant now than ever before. This is a tale that has been shared from master to student for generations, a cornerstone of Zen teaching, often called the cup of tea, or sometimes a little more tea. It doesn't involve complex philosophy or difficult meditation techniques right away. Instead, it uses a simple, everyday act, sharing a cup of tea, to highlight a fundamental truth about the nature of receiving wisdom, knowledge, and even the simple reality of the present moment. It sets the scene with a familiar character, someone who believes they already know a great deal. The story goes like this. There was once a scholar, a man renowned throughout the land for his vast knowledge. He had devoured countless books, mastered numerous philosophies, debated with the sharpest minds, and could quote scriptures and ancient texts from memory. His intellect was sharp, his learning deep, and he was, understandably, quite proud of his accomplishments. This scholar heard about a famous Zen master living a simple, quiet life in a small dwelling. Intrigued by the reputation of this master, and perhaps eager to add understanding of Zen to his already extensive collection of knowledge, the scholar decided to visit him. He traveled a great distance, arriving at the master's humble abode filled with anticipation, and, it must be said, filled with himself. When he was finally in the presence of the master, the scholar wasted no time. He didn't wait for the master to offer a greeting or begin a lesson. Instead, the scholar immediately began to talk. He launched into a detailed, lengthy, and elaborate explanation of his own views on philosophy, his interpretations of various religious texts, his theories about the nature of reality, his questions about Zen based on his existing knowledge, and even his doubts and criticisms. He talked and talked, barely pausing for breath, eager to demonstrate just how much he already knew, how intelligent he was, and how thoroughly he had already thought about the very things the master might teach him. He was, in short, pouring out the contents of his own mind. The master listened patiently. He sat quietly, observing the scholar, nodding occasionally, his expression calm and attentive. After a while, without interrupting the rapid flow of the scholar's words, the master suggested they have tea. He rose and began to prepare the tea, moving with the slow, deliberate, mindful grace of the traditional tea ceremony. He heated the water, selected the leaves, and picked up a teapot. He then took a cup and placed it before the still-talking scholar. The master began to pour the hot, fragrant tea into the scholar's cup. The scholar, engrossed in his monologue, continued speaking, detailing another point of his vast learning. The master poured. The beautiful amber liquid rose in the cup. The scholar kept talking. The tea reached the very brim of the cup. The scholar kept talking. The master kept pouring. The tea overflowed the cup, spilling onto the saucer below. The scholar continued his discourse, seemingly oblivious. The master kept pouring. The tea flowed over the saucer, onto the polished wooden table, and finally began to drip steadily onto the floor, forming a small dark puddle. The scholar, mid-sentence in an intricate argument, finally took a moment to notice the scene before him. His eyes widened in alarm as the tea continued to pour, creating a growing mess around his feet. He finally stopped speaking abruptly, his voice trailing off, startled and confused by the master's actions. "Master!" he exclaimed, his voice filled with surprise, perhaps a touch of irritation, and certainly bewilderment. "You are pouring too much. The cup is full. It cannot hold any more tea." The master stopped pouring. He gently set down the teapot. He looked calmly at the scholar, who was now silent, staring at the overflowing cup and the spreading tea. Then the master spoke, his voice quiet but clear. "Precisely," the master said gently. "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" The story ends there, a simple anecdote. But its wisdom, like that tea, overflows the boundaries of the tale itself. It uses the most basic elements, a cup, tea, pouring, to illustrate a profound truth about our minds, our readiness to learn, and our capacity to truly receive the world and others. Let's unpack this powerful analogy. The cup. This is you. More specifically, it represents your mind, your consciousness, your mental space. It's not just your brain as a physical organ, but your state of awareness, your capacity to receive and process information, your readiness to learn, your ability to be present. The tea. This represents everything that life offers and everything you might seek to receive. Knowledge, wisdom, new ideas, different perspectives, teachings, experiences, the words of another person, the simple sensory input of the present moment, the pouring. This is the act of receiving. It's the master offering his teaching, a book offering its knowledge, a friend sharing their feelings, or the world presenting you with a new experience. The overflowing. This is the critical, messy consequence of trying to pour into a vessel that is already full. When the cup is already brimming, any new pouring doesn't add to what's inside or deepen its contents. It simply spills out, gets wasted, creates a mess, and achieves nothing productive. In terms of the mind, this overflow is when new information or wisdom cannot be truly absorbed, integrated, or understood. It's dismissed because it doesn't fit with what's already there. It's distorted to fit existing beliefs. Or it's simply lost in the mental clutter because there is no receptive space for it to land and settle. The scholar, despite his immense learning, was the embodiment of the full cup. He came to the master seeking something new, but his mind was so completely occupied by what he already knew, what he already believed, what he already assumed about Zen, that the master's teaching, the tea of Zen, had nowhere to go. It couldn't enter his mind and truly be received. It just flowed right over the top, making a mess on the table, but leaving the contents of the scholar's mental cup entirely unchanged. He was so full of himself and his existing knowledge that he was impermeable to new wisdom. While the scholar's cup was filled with ancient texts and philosophical debates, what fills our mental cups today, often to overflowing, preventing us from receiving new wisdom, connecting authentically with others, or even seeing the present moment clearly? The list is vast, insidious, and constantly expanding in our modern environment. preconceived notions and assumptions. We constantly operate based on what we think we know. We walk into situations, meet people, or encounter ideas already having formed opinions and assumptions based on past experiences, stereotypes, media portrayals, or what others have told us. This prejudgment fills our cup instantly and prevents us from seeing what's actually there in its fresh reality. Confirmation bias. This is a powerful and pervasive filler. Our minds are naturally wired to seek out and favor information that confirms what we already believe, and to ignore or dismiss information that contradicts it. This rapidly fills our cup with validating tea, reinforcing our existing views and leaving virtually no room for challenging evidence or alternative perspectives. The internet and social media algorithms, which show us more of what we already engage with, act like constant, powerful pourers of this specific type of tea, making our cups even more full of our own biases. Ego and intellectual pride. Just like the scholar's pride in his learning, our ego can fill our cup with the belief that, I already know this, I'm smarter than this, I'm right and they're wrong, or my way is the only valid way. This mental stance makes us resistant to learning from others, admitting when we don't know, or acknowledging that we might be mistaken. It creates a hard, impermeable surface on the tea in our cup. Mental clutter and distractions. The sheer volume of internal noise is immense. Constant worries about the future, ruminations on past events, endless to-do lists running on repeat, anxieties, fears, and the relentless internal dialogue. This everyday mental chatter takes up enormous space in our cup, leaving little to no room for focused attention, quiet contemplation, or the simple reception of what is happening now. Strong opinions and judgments. We live in a culture that encourages having and broadcasting strong opinions on everything, forming rigid judgments about people, situations, and ideas, and constantly evaluating them as good or bad, right or wrong, quickly fills our cup with self-created noise, resistance, and separation. This makes it incredibly difficult to truly listen to, understand, or empathize with anyone who holds a different view or lives a different experience. Information overload, the fire hose. We are constantly bombarded with news headlines, often sensationalized, opinions presented as facts, endless entertainment options, notifications from multiple apps, and a never-ending stream of data. Trying to absorb even a fraction of this without conscious filtering or processing simply fills our mental cup to immediate overflowing, leading to stress, anxiety, decision fatigue, and a feeling of being scattered and overwhelmed. Unprocessed. Past experiences, negative past events, traumas, hurts, or unresolved emotions can create powerful filters and biases that color every new experience we encounter. This effectively pre-fills the cup with a certain flavor or tint that dominates everything else, making it hard to taste the present moment clearly or see new situations objectively. Our past pain can take up all the space needed for present joy or learning. Fear of being wrong or not knowing. The fear of appearing ignorant or being proven wrong can make us cling tightly to what we already know or think we know. This fear acts like a lid on our cup, preventing anything new from being poured in, even if it's exactly what we need to learn. When our mental cups are filled with these things, these assumptions, biases, ego, clutter, judgments, and unprocessed pasts, we are like the scholar. We might be in a situation ripe for learning, but we're too busy mentally arguing with it or trying to fit it into our existing framework. We might meet someone incredible, but our assumptions blind us to who they truly are. We might encounter a profound truth, but our preconceived notions make us dismiss it. The tea, the potential for growth, connection, wisdom, and presence is simply wasted spilling onto the floor of our lives without ever nourishing us. Living with a perpetually full mental cup has significant and often painful consequences in our daily lives. Inability to learn and grow. If you believe your cup is full, you signal to yourself and the world that you have nothing more to receive. You cannot learn new skills, absorb new ideas, or gain deeper understanding if there is no space for them. You become stagnant, rigid, and resistant to change. Closed-mindedness and resistance, a mind rigid and full with its own contents, cannot genuinely entertain alternative perspectives or possibilities. This leads to conflict in relationships, misunderstanding, missed opportunities for innovation, and a general resistance to anything outside your established comfort zone. Lack of empathy and connection. If your cup is full of your own thoughts, judgments, and assumptions about another person, there is no space to truly receive their experience, their feelings, their perspective, or their humanity. Empathy and deep connection require an empty, receptive space where you can truly hear and see the other. Increased stress and anxiety. The sheer volume of mental clutter, unresolved thoughts, and constant internal chatter in a full mind is incredibly draining and stressful. It creates a persistent buzzing of anxiety, making it difficult to find moments of calm, focus, or peace. Missing the present moment. When the cup is full of past regrets, future worries, and endless distractions, there is literally no space left to receive the richness, beauty, and simple reality of what is happening now. Life flows by in its fullness, but you are too full yourself to taste it, see it, hear it, or feel it. You are present in body, but absent in mind. Strained and broken relationships, constant judgment, inability to truly listen, unwillingness to understand different viewpoints, and the need to always be right are recipes for relational disaster. A full cup prevents the flow of mutual understanding and acceptance necessary for healthy connections. This is why the Master's simple, seemingly abrupt action with the teacup wasn't a reprimand. It was a powerful, non-verbal teaching. He wasn't just refusing to teach a rude or arrogant scholar. He was demonstrating a fundamental principle of receiving any form of wisdom, any new experience, any genuine connection. The vessel, your mind, must be prepared. It must have space. So, if our cups are so easily filled by the constant deluge of life and the relentless activity of our own minds, how do we empty them? This is where the practice comes in. Emptying the cup isn't a one-time event, like dumping out old tea. It's an ongoing process, a conscious effort to create space, a discipline of letting go. Here are some practical ways to practice emptying your cup in our busy, modern lives. Cultivate mindful awareness and observation. This is the absolute foundation. Practice simply noticing what's in your mental cup without immediately reacting to it or judging it. Observe the thoughts, opinions, worries, assumptions, and emotions as they arise, but practice not pouring more tea into them by getting caught up in narratives or identifying with them as you. Just watch them flow, perhaps like water draining from the cup. Meditation is a powerful tool for training this muscle, sitting quietly and training yourself to observe the contents of your mind without clinging to what's there or adding more fuel. Embrace beginner's mind, Shoshin. This is a core Zen concept directly related to the empty cup, and it's incredibly powerful. Approach every situation, every person, every task, every conversation as if you are encountering it for the very first time, with absolutely no preconceived notions or assumptions. Imagine you know absolutely nothing about it. What do you actually observe? What can you actually learn if you aren't filtering it through your existing knowledge or biases? This is incredibly challenging, especially with familiar things, but it is incredibly freeing and opens up vast possibilities for discovery. Try it when learning a new skill. meeting someone new, or even revisiting a familiar place or topic. What do you see when your cup is empty of expectation and prior knowledge? Practice conscious, deep listening. When interacting with others, especially in conversations that might involve disagreement or sensitive topics, consciously set aside your own counter-arguments, your judgments about the other person, and your plans for exactly what you'll say next. Create space in your mind to solely focus on receiving the other person's words fully. Listen not just to the words themselves, but the meaning, the feeling, and the perspective behind them. This is actively emptying your cup of your own internal noise to make space for another person's reality to enter. Question your assumptions and beliefs. Actively challenge your own firmly held beliefs and opinions, especially those that cause resistance or conflict. Ask yourself, why do I believe this? Is it based on solid evidence or just habit or emotion? What if the opposite were true? Could I even entertain that possibility? What am I afraid of if I let go of this belief? This act of questioning can help to loosen the grip of rigid, old contents in your cup, allowing some tea to drain away and create space for new understanding. Schedule mindful breaks and practice digital detox. Recognize when the pouring is simply too much, too fast, and too overwhelming. Intentionally step away from the fire hose of information and demands. Schedule moments of quiet throughout your day. Take intentional breaks from screens, from news feeds, from constant input. Create periods of stillness where your mind has a chance to settle, and the overflowing contents of your cup can perhaps evaporate a little, naturally creating space. Use journaling or expression as an outlet. Sometimes, the cup is full of swirling, unprocessed thoughts and emotions that feel stuck. Writing them down in a journal, talking them through with a trusted friend or therapist, or engaging in creative expression like art or music can be powerful ways of pouring out some of the mental and emotional contents, clearing space within the cup so you're not carrying it all internally. Practice non-reaction. When something happens that would normally trigger a strong emotional or mental reaction, like the scholar's irritation at the overflowing tea, pause. Notice the urge to react, but see if you can create a tiny space before responding. This pause is like creating a momentary emptiness in the cup, allowing you to choose a response rather than being automatically filled and driven by the initial reaction. When you make the conscious effort to regularly empty your mental cup, you create space, not for nothingness, but for what truly matters and what is truly present. What fills the cup then is not clutter, but clarity, presence, genuine connection, and authentic wisdom. Genuine learning and growth. With space cleared of old assumptions and clutter, new information and wisdom can be absorbed, integrated, and truly understood. You become a perpetual student of life, always open to learning. Increased creativity and insight. An uncluttered mind is a spacious mind. It has room for new ideas to emerge, for unexpected connections to be made, leading to greater creativity and insight. Deeper connections with others. By emptying your cup of judgment, assumption, and self-focus, you create the necessary space to truly see, hear, and connect with others authentically, fostering deeper and more meaningful relationships. Reduced stress and anxiety. Less mental clutter means less noise, less worry, and a greater sense of inner peace and calm. The overflowing stops, and the mess begins to clear. Heightened awareness and presence. An empty cup allows you to fully receive the sensory richness, the subtle beauty, and the simple reality of what is happening now. You are able to be fully here, leading to greater appreciation, joy, and a sense of being alive. Increased resilience and adaptability. With less rigid content filling the cup, you become more flexible, like the bamboo. You are less disturbed and more adaptable when new, unexpected, or challenging. Tea gets poured into your life because you have the mental space to process it without overflowing into chaos. The master's simple, seemingly abrupt action with the teacup wasn't a reprimand. It was a profound, nonverbal teaching and a powerful invitation. An invitation to look honestly at the state of our own minds and to understand that the necessary first step for true receiving, whether it's wisdom, peace, or connection, is to create space. Look at your own mind right now. How full is your cup? What is overflowing, causing mess, stress, and preventing you from truly receiving the wisdom, the connection, the peace, and the simple beauty that life is constantly offering? The path of mindfulness, the essence of Zen, is not about filling your cup with more things, more knowledge, more experiences, more achievements. It's often, paradoxically, about the practice of emptying it. Emptying it of the old, the stale, the unnecessary, the assumed, the cluttered. Emptying it over and over again, not to be empty forever, but so that you are always ready to receive the fresh, vital, nourishing tea of the present moment, of new learning, and of genuine connection, without a single drop being wasted. Find your quiet space. Breathe. Notice what's in your cup, and gently, consciously, begin the practice of emptying it, making space for the wisdom that awaits. Have you ever noticed how sometimes when something bad happens, the initial pain is just the beginning? It's like the event itself hurts, but then what you do after it happens seems to make everything so much worse. The initial sting fades, but a deeper, longer-lasting ache sets in, fueled by your own thoughts and feelings about what happened. It's a common human experience. We face a setback, a disappointment, a moment of physical pain, an unkind word, or a difficult situation. That's the first layer of suffering. But then, almost immediately, another layer begins to build. We get angry about it. We worry about the consequences. We blame ourselves or others. We replay the event over and over in our minds. We feel sorry for ourselves. We resist the reality of what happened. We add layers and layers of mental and emotional reaction to the initial experience. What if much of our suffering isn't caused by the difficult events themselves, but by how we respond to them? What if we are, in fact, actively making our own suffering worse? This is the profound insight offered by another classic Zen story, often called the Two Arrows. It's a simple, stark image that cuts right to the heart of how we experience pain and how we often amplify it unnecessarily. The story is quite short, almost like a koan in its simplicity. A Zen master was teaching his students about suffering. He said, "When you are struck by an arrow, it hurts, doesn't it?" The students nodded. Of course, being struck by an arrow would hurt immensely. The master continued, "But what if, immediately after being struck by the first arrow, you were then struck by a second arrow?" The students shuddered. The thought of a second arrow hitting the same wound or another part of their body was horrifying. That would be far, far worse than the first. The master looked at them and said, "In life, we cannot always avoid the first arrow. We will experience pain, loss, disappointment, illness, and hardship. This is the first arrow. But so often, immediately after being struck by the first arrow, we shoot ourselves with a second arrow. The second arrow is our reaction. It is the worry, the fear, the anger, the self-pity, the blame, the resistance that we add to the original pain. The suffering from the second arrow is often far greater than the suffering from the first. And that is the story. Simple, direct, and incredibly powerful. Let's unpack this potent metaphor. The first arrow represents the unavoidable pain and difficulty that life throws at us. This includes physical pain, injury, illness, chronic conditions, loss, death of a loved one, end of a relationship, losing a job, disappointment, failed plans, unmet expectations, setbacks, mistakes, failures, obstacles, unkindness from others, criticism, betrayal, rejection, adverse circumstances, financial troubles, natural disasters, unexpected problems, the natural process of aging and decay. These are the things we often have little or no control over. They happen to us. They are part of the human condition, part of living in a world that is constantly changing and unpredictable. The first arrow will strike from time to time. It hurts. It causes discomfort, sadness, fear, or frustration. This initial pain is real and valid. The second arrow, however, is entirely different. The second arrow is the suffering we create for ourselves in response to the first arrow. It is not the original pain, but our mental and emotional reaction to it. This is the suffering we choose, often unconsciously, to inflict upon ourselves. What does this second arrow look like in our daily lives? It takes many forms. Worry and anxiety. After a setback, first arrow, we obsess about all the potential negative outcomes, creating endless scenarios of doom in our minds. This worry is the second arrow. Anger and resentment. When someone treats us unfairly, first arrow, we hold on to the anger, replay the event, fantasize about revenge, and nurse the resentment. This sustained anger is the second arrow. Self-pity. After a loss or disappointment, first arrow, we sink into self-pity, focusing solely on how unfair things are to us, feeling helpless and miserable. This self-pity is the second arrow. Blame. When something goes wrong, first arrow, we immediately look for someone or something to blame. Ourselves, others, the system, fate. This act of blaming, especially when it becomes obsessive or destructive, is the second arrow. Resistance and denial. When faced with an unpleasant reality, first arrow, we resist it, deny it, wish it hadn't happened, or fight against the truth of the situation. This refusal to accept reality is a powerful second arrow. Rumination. Replaying the painful event over and over in your mind, analyzing it from every angle, dissecting every detail, getting stuck in a loop of what-ifs and should-haves. This mental loop is a relentless second arrow. Catastrophizing. Taking a difficult situation, first arrow, and immediately blowing it up into the worst possible catastrophe, convincing yourself that everything is ruined and hopeless. This exaggeration is a sharp second arrow. Shame and guilt. Excessive. While appropriate guilt can lead to amends, excessive or misplaced shame and guilt after a mistake or setback, first arrow, can be a debilitating second arrow, keeping you stuck in self-condemnation. Fear of future pain. After experiencing pain, first arrow, developing an intense fear of it happening again, causing you to live cautiously, avoid opportunities, and feel constantly anxious. This fear of the future is a preemptive second arrow. Think about the difference in suffering. The pain of a physical injury, first arrow, is real. But the suffering caused by constantly worrying about that injury, getting angry at the person you blame for it, feeling sorry for yourself because you can't do certain things, and fearing it will never heal, that is the second arrow. And it can make the experience of the injury far more agonizing and prolonged than the physical pain itself. The sting of an unkind word, first arrow, might last a few moments. But replaying that word in your head for days, feeling hurt and angry every time you think of it, imagining confrontations, telling everyone how badly you were treated, that is the second arrow, and it creates suffering that far outweighs the original slight. The disappointment of a failed project, first arrow, is a natural response. But dwelling on the failure, criticizing yourself relentlessly, fearing future attempts, and feeling like a complete failure, that is the second arrow, and it can be crushing. The Zen master's teaching is not about denying the first arrow. It's not about pretending that pain and hardship don't exist or don't hurt. They do. The first arrow is part of life. The revolutionary insight is that the majority of our prolonged, deep suffering comes from the second arrow, the suffering we add ourselves. The power of this teaching lies in the realization that while we cannot always prevent the first arrow from striking, we have a profound capacity to influence and often prevent the second arrow. The first arrow is often external or circumstantial. The second arrow is almost always internal, a product of our own minds and emotional habits. So, how do we avoid shooting ourselves with the second arrow? It takes awareness and practice, but it is possible. Here are some ways to cultivate the ability to respond to the first arrow without adding the second. Recognize the first arrow for what it is. When pain, loss, or difficulty strikes, acknowledge it honestly. Okay, this is the first arrow. This hurts. This is difficult. Don't immediately try to minimize it or intellectualize it away. Feel the initial impact. Become aware of the second arrow. Arising. This is the crucial step. Pay attention to your immediate mental and emotional reactions after the initial pain. Notice the thoughts of blame, the feelings of anger, the urge to worry, the narrative of self-pity starting to form. See them as they are, reactions, not the original event itself. This is where mindfulness is key, observing your internal landscape without getting swept away by it. Pause before reacting. There is often a tiny space between the first arrow striking and the second arrow being shot. In that space lies your freedom. Can you notice the impulse to worry, blame, or get angry and just pause? This pause creates an opportunity to choose your response instead of being automatically driven by habit. Acceptance, not resistance. The second arrow is often fueled by resistance to the reality of the first arrow. This shouldn't be happening. Why me? It's not fair. While these feelings are natural, clinging to them shoots the second arrow. Acceptance doesn't mean liking what happened or agreeing with it. It means acknowledging that it has happened. Okay, this is the situation now. It is what it is. This allows you to deal with the reality rather than fighting against it. Let go of blame, self or other. Blame is a heavy second arrow. While it's natural to look for causes, getting stuck in obsessive blame keeps you trapped in the past and prevents you from moving forward. Practice acknowledging what happened without needing to assign fault and dwell there. Focus on what you can do now. Focus on the present moment. The second arrow thrives on pulling you into the past, rumination, regret, blame, or the future, worry, fear. The first arrow happens now. By bringing your attention back to the present moment, your breath, your physical sensations, your immediate surroundings, you step out of the narratives that fuel the second arrow. What is happening right now? Often, the present moment, even in the midst of hardship, is less painful than the story we are telling ourselves about it. Cultivate self-compassion. When the first arrow strikes, especially if it involves a mistake or perceived failure on your part, the second arrow is often self-criticism and shame. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend who was suffering. Acknowledge the pain without adding harsh self-judgment. Reframe your thoughts. While not denying the reality of the first arrow, can you consciously choose to look for alternative perspectives? Is there a lesson to be learned? Is there a way to see this challenge as an opportunity for growth? This isn't about positive thinking that ignores reality, but about actively choosing thoughts that are more constructive and less likely to become a second arrow. Seek support, don't just vent. Talking to others can be helpful, but be mindful not to simply replay the story and reinforce the second arrow. Worry, anger, self-pity. Seek support that helps you process the initial pain and find constructive ways to move forward rather than getting stuck in the narrative of suffering. The Zen master's teaching on the two arrows is not just a philosophical concept. It is a practical guide for reducing suffering in your life. It empowers you by revealing that you have agency in how you experience pain. You cannot always control the external world, but you can learn to control your internal response. Recognizing the second arrow is the first step towards disarming it. It requires vigilance, honesty, and a willingness to look at your own mind and its habitual reactions. It's a practice that takes time and effort, like learning any new skill. You will still be struck by the first arrow. That's guaranteed by life. But with practice, you can learn to let the second arrow fall harmlessly to the ground, choosing not to pick it up and shoot yourself again and again. Imagine facing life's inevitable difficulties with the ability to feel the initial pain, acknowledge it, and then consciously choose not to add layers of worry, anger, or self-pity. Imagine the freedom, the resilience, and the peace that comes from knowing that while the first arrow may wound you, you do not have to be a victim of your own reactions. This is the profound gift of the two arrows teaching. It shifts your focus from trying to control the uncontrollable external world to cultivating mastery over your own internal landscape. It teaches you that much of the suffering you experience is optional. So, the next time you are struck by the first arrow, the inevitable pain or difficulty of life, pause. Notice the urge to reach for the second arrow, the worry, the anger, the blame, and see if just for a moment you can choose to let it go. Choose not to shoot yourself again. Choose to experience the first arrow fully and then focus your energy not on adding more pain, but on healing and moving forward. This is the path to reducing your suffering, one arrow at a time. Think about the strongest things you know. Perhaps towering mountains, ancient stone structures, or mighty oak trees with thick, unyielding trunks. We often associate strength with rigidity, with being solid, immovable, unbreakable. When we face challenges in our own lives, the strong winds of change, the storms of adversity, the relentless pressure of daily demands, we often feel we need to be like that oak tree, standing firm, resisting, refusing to bend. But what happens to the most rigid things when the force against them becomes overwhelming? The stone wall cracks. The mighty oak, if the storm is fierce enough, can be uprooted and toppled, its branches snapped, its strength ultimately its undoing in the face of irresistible force. What if true strength, the kind that endures and thrives, isn't about rigidity at all? What if it's found in the very opposite quality, in the ability to yield, to adapt, to move with the force rather than against it? This is the profound lesson offered by one of the most beautiful and insightful symbols in Zen and many Eastern philosophies, the bamboo tree. Imagine yourself walking in a forest, not a dense, dark forest, but a grove, perhaps on a hillside where the air is clear and the wind begins to pick up. As you look around, you see different kinds of trees. You see some that stand stiff and tall, their branches resisting the wind's push. But then you see the bamboo. The bamboo stalks are not massive like oak trunks. They are slender, seemingly delicate, often hollow. As the wind blows, growing stronger and stronger, you watch the bamboo. Does it stand rigid? Does it try to fight the invisible force pushing against it? Instead, the bamboo begins to bend. It bends deeply, its slender stalks curving gracefully, sometimes arching so low that its leafy tops touch the ground. It yields completely to the wind's power. It doesn't resist. It doesn't fight. It simply moves with the force. The wind howls, it pushes, it strains, but the bamboo continues to bend, sometimes swaying dramatically, almost seeming to dance with the storm. You might think, watching this, that it is weak, that it will surely snap under such pressure. But then, as the wind finally begins to subside, something remarkable happens. The bamboo, which bent so low, doesn't remain there. Slowly, gracefully, it begins to rise back up. It straightens its stalk, regaining its upright posture, seemingly unharmed by the powerful forces that swept over it. It bent, but it did not break, and beneath the ground, unseen, are the bamboo's roots. While the stalk is flexible above, the root system is strong, interconnected, and firmly anchored to the earth. It is this hidden strength that prevents the bending stalk from being uprooted entirely. This simple observation of nature became a powerful teaching. The Zen master might turn to his students and say, "See the bamboo? That is how you must be in life." Let's unpack the wisdom of the bamboo tree. The wind represents the challenges, the difficulties, the pressures, the unexpected changes, the criticisms, the losses, the setbacks that come into our lives. These are the forces we cannot always control, the storms we must weather. The bending represents flexibility. It is the ability to yield, to adapt, to be non-rigid. In human terms, this means adaptability, the willingness to adjust your plans, your expectations, or your approach when circumstances change, not clinging rigidly to how you think things should be. Mental flexibility, being open to new ideas, different perspectives, and alternative ways of doing things, not being stuck in fixed opinions or ways of thinking. Emotional flexibility, allowing yourself to feel emotions without being consumed by them or resisting them. Being able to move through sadness, anger, or fear rather than getting stuck. Non-resistance, meeting challenges with a willingness to move with them rather than fighting against the inevitable. Accepting what is, at least in the moment, to find a way through it. Humility, the ability to bend low, to not always need to stand tall and proud, to admit you don't know everything, to be willing to learn from difficult experiences. The bamboo teaches us that flexibility is not weakness. It is a form of intelligent strength. By bending, the bamboo dissipates the force of the wind. It doesn't offer rigid resistance that would lead to snapping. It uses the energy of the wind to move, and in that movement, it finds survival. But flexibility alone isn't enough. If the bamboo stalk were just flexible without being anchored, the wind would simply snap it at the base or carry it away. This is where the roots come in. The roots represent strength, grounding, and inner conviction. In human terms, this means core values, having a clear sense of what is fundamentally important to you, your principles, your ethics, your deepest beliefs. These are your anchors. Inner conviction, a quiet confidence in yourself, not based on arrogance, but on knowing your own worth and capabilities. Resilience, the capacity to bounce back after being pushed down. The inner fortitude that allows you to regain your upright posture after bending. Self-awareness, knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what your limits are. This inner knowing provides stability. Connection, the interconnectedness of the bamboo's root system can also symbolize the strength we draw from our connections to others, to community, or to something larger than ourselves. Being rooted in healthy relationships provides support. Purpose, having a sense of purpose or direction, can act as a powerful root system, giving you a reason to stand tall again after being bent by challenges. The strength of the roots prevents the bamboo from being uprooted. It provides the stability needed so that the bending isn't a collapse, but a temporary yielding. The true power of the bamboo lies in the balance between flexibility and strength. Imagine being only flexible without roots. You'd be tossed about by every gust of wind, having no center, no direction, easily carried away by external forces or the whims of others. You might adapt to everything, but you'd stand for nothing. Imagine being only strong and rigid, without flexibility. You'd resist every challenge, every change, every criticism. You'd be unyielding, perhaps proud, but ultimately brittle. The first truly powerful storm would shatter you. You'd be unable to adapt to the inevitable flow of life, constantly in conflict with reality. The bamboo shows us that resilience isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being unbendable and rooted. It's the dynamic interplay between yielding and holding firm. It's knowing when to adapt and when to stand your ground. It's having the flexibility to navigate the surface storms while being deeply rooted in your core truth. In our modern lives, we face constant winds, job changes, and career uncertainty. Do you rigidly cling to one path, or are you flexible enough to pivot and adapt your skills? Are you rooted in your core competencies and values so you're not completely lost when the industry shifts? Relationship challenges. Do you rigidly demand things be a certain way, or can you bend, compromise, and adapt? Are you rooted in self-respect and your core needs so you don't bend so far you break or lose yourself? Unexpected health issues. Do you rigidly deny the reality, or can you flexibly adapt your lifestyle and seek help? Are you rooted in a will to heal and inner resilience to face the difficulty? Social and political upheaval. Do you become rigidly entrenched in your views and break connections, or can you flexibly listen and seek understanding? Are you rooted in your core values while remaining open to dialogue? Personal setbacks and failures. Do you rigidly define yourself by the failure and snap, or can you flexibly learn from it and adjust your approach? Are you rooted in self-worth that isn't dependent on constant success? The bamboo offers a masterclass in navigating these winds. It teaches us that the path to enduring strength is not through hardening ourselves, but through cultivating the wisdom to know when to bend and the inner stability to ensure we don't break or get uprooted when we do. How can we cultivate the qualities of the bamboo in our own lives? Practice mindfulness and self-awareness. Just as the master observed the bamboo, observe yourself. Notice your reactions to challenges. Do you stiffen up? Do you immediately resist? Become aware of your habitual patterns of rigidity or excessive bending. Understand your own root system. What are your core values? What truly grounds you? Embrace adaptability as a strength. Consciously practice being flexible in small ways. Try a new route to work. Change your routine. Be open to a friend's suggestion, even if it's not your first choice. See adaptability not as giving in, but as a skill that makes you more resilient. Identify and strengthen your roots. What are the non-negotiables in your life? Your core values? Your purpose? Your key relationships? Spend time nurturing these. Define what you stand for. Meditate on your inner strength and resilience. These are the roots that keep you grounded when you have to bend. Learn to yield, not just resist. When faced with a situation you cannot change, the first arrow, practice yielding to the reality of it, like the bamboo yields to the wind. This doesn't mean giving up, but releasing the rigid resistance that causes suffering. Once you bend, you can look for a way to navigate within the reality. Develop a strong inner core, not a hard shell. Strength isn't about building an impenetrable outer shell that resists everything. It's about cultivating a strong, flexible core. Your inner resilience, your values, your self-awareness that allows you to bend without collapsing. See challenges as wind, not walls. Reframe difficulties not as solid walls to bash against, but as forces like the wind that you can learn to move with and through. This shift in perspective from rigidity to flexibility can change your entire experience of adversity. Find your interconnectedness. Like the bamboo's root system, recognize the strength you gain from your connections to others. Leaning on friends, family, or community in times of trouble isn't weakness. It's drawing strength from your roots. The bamboo tree stands as a timeless teacher, swaying gently in the breeze. bracing itself against the storm, always returning upright when the force subsides. It doesn't boast of its strength, yet it endures seasons and centuries. It doesn't fear the wind, for it knows how to dance with it. Its lesson is clear. True resilience is not found in the absence of challenge, nor in rigid resistance to it. It is found in the elegant balance of flexibility and strength. It is the wisdom to bend deeply when necessary, coupled with the inner fortitude to remain rooted and rise again. Look to the bamboo. Let its silent wisdom guide you. Cultivate your flexibility, strengthen your roots, and learn to move with the winds of life, bending gracefully, enduring powerfully, and always finding your way back to standing tall. That is the way of the bamboo. That is the way of enduring resilience. Have you ever had an experience, maybe something small, maybe something significant, that happened hours, days, or even weeks ago, but you're still carrying it around? Not physically, of course, but in your mind. You're still thinking about it, still feeling annoyed or hurt by it, still replaying the conversation, still judging the person involved, still feeling the weight of it long after the actual event is over. It's like you picked something up and you just haven't put it down yet. We do this all the time. We hold on to grudges, onto criticisms, onto worries, onto past mistakes, our own or others, onto unmet expectations. We carry these things with us, sometimes for years, and they weigh us down, clutter our minds, and steal our peace. We think about letting go. Maybe we even try, but somehow the mental baggage just seems to stick. What if the act of letting go, of truly releasing something, is simpler than we make it? What if it's less about a grand gesture and more about a moment-to-moment choice? This is the timeless lesson embedded in another classic Zen story, often called The Muddy Road. It's a story that highlights the difference between action and attachment, between doing what is necessary and carrying the unnecessary burden of judgment and thought. The story goes like this. Two Zen monks, Tanzan and Aikido, were traveling together on a pilgrimage. They were bound by strict vows, including the vow to never touch a woman, as it was considered a distraction from their spiritual path. As they were traveling, they came to a road that was incredibly muddy and difficult to pass. Heavy rain had fallen, turning the path into a thick, deep mire. As they approached a particularly bad spot, they saw a young woman standing there, dressed in a beautiful silk kimono. She was trying to cross the road, but the mud was so deep and treacherous that she couldn't manage it on her own, afraid of ruining her fine clothing. She looked distressed and uncertain how to proceed. The first monk, Aikido, immediately averted his eyes, strictly adhering to his vow. He saw the situation but mentally turned away, perhaps judging the woman for being there or for her predicament, and certainly not considering interacting with her. He prepared to navigate the mud himself, carefully trying to avoid touching anything or anyone. But the second monk, Tanzan, saw the woman's difficulty. Without a moment's hesitation, he walked straight up to her. He said a few kind words, then, with compassion in his eyes, he simply picked her up in his arms. He lifted her carefully, carried her across the deep, muddy stretch of road, and gently set her down on the other side where the path was clear. He made sure she was steady, gave a slight nod, and then continued on his way with his fellow monk. Aikido was astonished and deeply disturbed by what he had just witnessed. He said nothing at the time, but walked on in silence, his mind churning. As they continued their journey, the silence grew heavy. Aikido was clearly agitated, his brow furrowed, his steps tense. Hours passed. They walked through forests, over hills, and beside streams. Still, Aikido remained silent, his internal turmoil evident. Finally, as evening approached and they were nearing their lodging for the night, Aikido could hold it in no longer. He stopped, turned to Tanzan, his voice strained with accusation and frustration. "Tanzan," he burst out, We are monks. We are forbidden to touch women, especially young and attractive ones. That was against our vows. How could you do that? Tanzan listened calmly to his companion's outburst. He looked at Aikido, a gentle, perhaps slightly amused expression on his face. Aikido, Tanzan replied softly. I set the woman down hours ago, back on the other side of the muddy road. Are you still carrying her? And that is the story. Let's unpack the layers of wisdom in this simple tale. The muddy road represents the difficult, messy, and sometimes unexpected situations we encounter in life. It's the place where things aren't clean, where problems arise, where we are faced with choices and challenges. The woman in the silk kimono represents a situation that requires action, compassion, and potentially involves something or someone we might have rules or judgments about. She is the specific circumstance that arises on the muddy road. The first monk, Aikido, represents the mind that is bound by rules, judgments, and resistance. He saw the situation, but couldn't engage with it directly because of his preconceived notions and strict adherence to a rule, perhaps even judging the woman or the situation itself. But crucially, even after they had moved on, his mind held onto the event. He carried the burden of judgment, of shock, of righteous indignation, of internal conflict about what had happened. He didn't touch the woman, but he carried the thought of her, the judgment of Tanzan's action, and the disturbance it caused him for hours. He was physically free of the situation, but mentally trapped by it. He was no longer on the muddy road, but the muddy road and the event that occurred there were still very much in his mind. The second monk, Tanzan, represents the mind that is present, compassionate, and capable of acting directly without attachment or lingering judgment. He saw the situation, the woman needing help, and responded to the immediate need with compassion. He broke a rule, yes, but his action was one of immediate, selfless help. But the key is what happened after the action. He carried the woman across, set her down, and then he let go. He didn't dwell on the fact that he had broken a vow. He didn't replay the moment. He didn't judge himself or the woman. He simply dealt with the situation that arose on the muddy road, and once it was resolved, his mind moved on. He wasn't carrying the event, the judgment, or the internal conflict. He was physically free, and his mind was also free. The core lesson is encapsulated in Tanzan's final question. Are you still carrying her? This question cuts through the specific details of the story, the monks, the vows, the woman, and points to a universal human tendency. The tendency to carry things in our minds long after we have physically left the situation. We often think that letting go means forgetting or approving of something we didn't like. But the story suggests something different. Tanzan didn't forget he carried the woman. He simply wasn't carrying the mental and emotional baggage associated with it. He performed the necessary action, and then he released the event from his active mental space. Aikido, on the other hand, didn't perform the action, but he picked up the mental burden and carried it for hours, allowing it to disturb his peace. What are you still carrying? Think about the things you've picked up from the muddy roads of your life. Past hurts. Someone said something unkind. Someone betrayed you. Someone disappointed you. The event happened, perhaps years ago, but are you still carrying the anger, the resentment, the sadness, the feeling of being wronged? Mistakes and failures. You made a mistake at work. You failed at something you tried. The event is over. The consequences may have passed. But are you still carrying the shame, the self-criticism, the fear of trying again? Unmet expectations. Things didn't go as planned. Someone didn't live up to what you hoped. Are you still carrying the disappointment, the frustration, the narrative of how things should have been? Judgments of others. Someone behaved in a way you disapproved of. Are you still carrying the judgment, the criticism, the feeling of superiority or indignation, allowing their actions to occupy space in your mind? Worries about the future. Something uncertain is coming up. Are you carrying the anxiety, the endless what-if scenarios, the fear of things you cannot control? Arguments and conflicts. You had a disagreement with someone. Is the conversation still replaying in your head? Are you still formulating your winning points or feeling hurt by theirs? All of these are forms of carrying the woman across the muddy road long after you've reached the other side. They are the second arrow of the two arrows story. The suffering we add to the initial event by dwelling on it, resisting it, and allowing it to occupy our mental space. Why do we carry these things? Often, it's because we believe that by holding on to them, we are somehow protecting ourselves, or making sense of things, or ensuring it won't happen again. We confuse processing an event with clinging to the negative thoughts and feelings associated with it. We confuse remembering a lesson with reliving the pain. But carrying this mental baggage comes at a huge cost. Loss of peace. The constant churning of past events or future worries steals your present peace and tranquility. Mental clutter. It fills your mind, leaving less space for focus, creativity, joy, or new experiences, much like the overflowing teacup. Strained relationships. Carrying judgments and resentments about others poisons your interactions and prevents genuine connection. Reduced energy. Dwelling on negativity is mentally and emotionally exhausting. Inability to be present. When your mind is full of what you're carrying from the past or future, you cannot fully experience the reality of the here and now. Tanzan's question is an invitation to become aware of what we are carrying unnecessarily. He didn't need to tell Aikido to let go. His question illuminated the fact that Aikido hadn't let go, and that this was the source of his suffering. So, how do we practice setting down the burden? How do we stop carrying the woman? Become aware of what you're carrying. This is the first step, just as Aikido was made aware by Tanzan's question. Pay attention to your thoughts and feelings. When you feel disturbed, anxious, angry, or resentful, ask yourself, what am I carrying right now? What happened earlier or in the past that I'm still holding on to? Acknowledge the event, then release the narrative. Recognize that the event happened, the first arrow, the muddy road. Don't deny it. But then, notice the story you are telling yourself about the event, the judgments you're making, the emotions you're fueling. This is the second arrow, the woman you're still carrying. Consciously identify the narrative as separate from the fact. Practice mindfulness of thoughts. Observe the thoughts related to what you're carrying without engaging with them or getting lost in them. See the thought of blame, the feeling of resentment, the worry about the future, simply as mental events passing through. Don't feed them energy by dwelling on them. Focus on the present moment. Just like focusing on the breath brings you back to the present, consciously shift your attention to what is happening right now. What do you see, hear, smell, feel in this exact moment? This pulls your energy out of the past or future burdens you're carrying and grounds you in the reality of the present, which is often free of that specific weight. Practice compassion for self and others. Often, what we carry involves judgment of ourselves or others. Cultivating compassion means recognizing that everyone, including yourself, is doing the best they can with their current understanding and circumstances. This doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it can help dissolve the rigid judgment that makes the burden so heavy. Consciously decide to set it down. This isn't always easy, but it's a powerful intention. When you notice you're carrying something, mentally visualize setting it down. Imagine placing the burden beside the road. Affirm to yourself, I am setting this down. The event is over. I don't need to carry this anymore. Process, don't just suppress. Letting go is not the same as suppressing or denying. If the burden is heavy, it might require processing through journaling, talking to someone, or therapeutic work. The goal is to integrate the experience and learn from it, so you can then genuinely release the emotional charge and obsessive thought patterns, rather than just burying them. Focus on action in the present. Like Tanzan, focus your energy on appropriate action in the current moment. If a lesson was learned from the past, apply it now. If amends need to be made, make them now. If a boundary needs to be set it now. Engaging constructively in the present prevents you from getting stuck carrying the past. The story of the muddy road is a powerful reminder that while we cannot always control the circumstances we encounter, we have a profound choice in how long we allow those circumstances and our reactions to them to weigh us down. Tanzan acted with compassion and then moved on, his mind clear. Aikido avoided the action but carried the mental burden, his mind disturbed for hours. Ask yourself throughout your day, especially when you feel tension, irritation, or worry, what am I still carrying? The path to freedom isn't about avoiding the muddy roads of life. It's about learning to walk through them, do what needs to be done in the moment, and then, crucially, leaving the mud and the burden behind you on the other side. Set it down. You don't have to carry it anymore. Do you ever feel weighed down? Not by physical burdens, but by the sheer weight of your own mind, like you're carrying around a heavy, invisible backpack filled with old thoughts, past hurts, fixed opinions, and 1,000 tiny judgments. It's easy to accumulate this mental baggage. Life happens. We form beliefs about ourselves and the world. We experience disappointments that shape our expectations. We cling to ideas that feel safe and familiar. We collect opinions about everyone and everything. And slowly, perhaps without even realizing it, our minds become cluttered, crowded, and heavy. This mental weight doesn't just make us feel tired. It limits us. It makes us resistant to change. It makes it hard to see things clearly, to learn new things, to be truly present, or to respond creatively to life's challenges. It's like trying to navigate a complex path with a giant, unwieldy load on your back. You can't move freely, you miss what's around you, and you get exhausted quickly. What if liberation isn't found in adding more to your mind, more knowledge, more techniques, more beliefs, but in the radical act of letting go? What if the key to lightness, openness, and true readiness lies in emptying the very vessel you think you need to fill? This is the profound teaching at the heart of the Zen story known as the empty mind. It's a story that challenges our conventional understanding of what it means to be ready to learn, to grow, and to truly live. The story often begins with a student, earnest and seeking, approaching a Zen master. The student, like many of us, is full of questions, eager for answers, and perhaps already holds many ideas about what spiritual truth is or should be. The student asks the master, "Master, what is the meaning of life?" Or perhaps, "Master, what is the path to enlightenment?" A fundamental, deep question, expecting a complex, profound answer. The master smiles gently. He doesn't immediately launch into a philosophical discourse or provide a step-by-step guide. Instead, he often uses a simple analogy, something drawn from everyday life, to point towards a truth that words alone cannot fully capture. The master might say, "Imagine a cup." The student pictures a cup. The master continues, "When the cup is full, can you put anything else in it?" The student thinks for a moment, then replies, "No, master. If the cup is full, you cannot put anything else in it. It would overflow." The master nods. "And when the cup is empty," he asks, "what can you put in it?" The student replies, "When the cup is empty, master, you can put anything in it. Tea, water, milk, anything." The master looks kindly at the student. "Precisely," he says. "Like this cup, your mind is full. full of your own thoughts, your opinions, your beliefs, your questions, your assumptions about the meaning of life and the path. How can you receive the true meaning? How can you receive the path if your mind is already full? And there is the core teaching, the meaning of life, the path to enlightenment, true wisdom. These things cannot be poured into a mind that is already brimming with its own contents. The vessel must be empty to receive. Let's delve into this powerful analogy. The cup is your mind. It's your capacity for awareness, understanding, and experience. The contents already in the cup are the things you carry. Past experiences, not just the memories, but the interpretations, the emotional residue, the lessons or misinterpretations of lessons you've taken from them. Fixed beliefs, ideas about how the world works, how people are, who you are, what is possible or impossible. These beliefs can be rigid and unquestioned, judgments and opinions, constant evaluations of yourself, others, and situations as good, bad, right, wrong, worthy, unworthy. Expectations, ideas about how things should be, how people should behave, how life should unfold. Fears and worries, anxieties about the future, fear of repeating the past, fear of not being enough. Desires and attachments, clinging to outcomes, possessions, relationships, or states of being. Unprocessed emotions, stored anger, sadness, resentment, or hurt that occupies mental space. Acquired knowledge, unintegrated. Facts and information that haven't been truly understood or assimilated, just stored, adding to the mental clutter. When the master says the student's mind is full, he's pointing to this accumulation of mental and emotional baggage. The student came seeking to add something to his already full cup, the meaning of life, or the path. But the master shows him that the fullness itself is the barrier. The new tea, or whatever you choose to put in the empty cup, represents true wisdom, understanding that goes beyond intellectual knowledge, present moment awareness, the direct, unfiltered experience of reality as it is, right now. Genuine insight, sudden understanding that arises from a clear, open mind. Creativity, the ability for new ideas and solutions to emerge. Peace and clarity, the natural state of a mind not cluttered by noise. Authentic connection, the ability to truly see and receive another person. The meaning of life, experienced, not a concept to be grasped intellectually, but a reality to be lived and experienced directly when the mind is open. When your mind is full of the old contents, there is no space for the new tea. You might hear wise words, but they bounce off the surface of your preconceived notions. You might be in a situation ripe for insight, but your mind is too busy replaying the past or worrying about the future. You might encounter a new idea, but your fixed beliefs immediately reject it because it doesn't fit. The potential for wisdom and presence is there, but your full cup prevents you from receiving it. The consequences of a full mind are significant. Resistance to learning and growth. If you already know or your mind is too full to take in new information, you become stagnant. Closed-mindedness. Fixed beliefs and strong opinions leave no room for alternative perspectives or understanding others. Lack of presence. When your mind is full of the past and future, you are unable to fully inhabit and experience the richness of the present moment. Reduced creativity and problem solving. A cluttered mind struggles to make new connections or find innovative solutions. Increased stress and anxiety. The sheer volume and weight of mental baggage create constant internal noise and tension. Difficulty with change. A rigid, full mind resists adaptation and finds transitions challenging. Strained relationships, judgments, expectations, and inability to truly listen because your mind is full of your own stuff damage connections. The master's point is radical. because it suggests that the path isn't about accumulation, but about release. It's not about finding the right answer to fill your cup, but about emptying the cup so you can receive whatever truth is present. So, how do we practice emptying the mind? This isn't about becoming brainless or losing your personality. It's about letting go of the unnecessary contents, the baggage that weighs you down and blocks your capacity to receive life fully. It's an ongoing practice, not a destination. Become aware of what's filling your cup. Just like in the cup of tea story, the first step is awareness. Pay attention to your thoughts, beliefs, judgments, and emotions. What narratives are constantly running? What opinions are you clinging to? What past events are you replaying? Simply notice these contents without judgment. Mindfulness meditation is an excellent tool for developing this awareness. You sit and observe the contents of your mind without getting lost in them. Question your fixed beliefs and assumptions. Many of the things filling our cup are beliefs we've never truly examined. Ask yourself, is this belief actually true? Is it serving me? Where did this assumption come from? What would be possible if I didn't believe this? This questioning process helps loosen the grip of rigid contents. Practice letting go of the past. Recognize that the past is over. You can learn from it, but you don't need to carry the emotional weight, the regrets, or the resentments. This is easier said than done, but practices like journaling, therapy, forgiveness of self and others, and focusing on the present can help release this heavy baggage. Release the need to judge. Consciously notice when you are judging yourself or others. See if you can pause and simply observe without immediately labeling or evaluating. Practice seeing things as they are, rather than filtering them through your preset judgments. This clears an enormous amount of mental clutter. Detach from outcomes and expectations. Much of our mental noise comes from clinging to how we think things should be. Practice accepting things as they are, even if they aren't what you wanted. This doesn't mean becoming passive, but releasing the rigid mental structure of expectation that causes suffering when reality doesn't match. Mindful breathing. Whenever you feel your mind is full and cluttered, return to your breath. Focusing on the simple sensation of breathing brings you back to the present moment and creates a small space in the mental noise. It's like gently clearing a little room in the cup. Engage fully in single tasks. When doing something, whether it's washing dishes, walking, or working, try to focus your entire attention on that one task. This practice of single-pointed focus naturally empties the mind of the usual swirling distractions. Spend time in silence and stillness. In our noisy world, deliberate silence is crucial for emptying the mind. Turn off the inputs. Sit quietly without distraction. Allow the contents of the cup to settle, and some may naturally dissolve or drain away. Emptying the mind is not about becoming empty-headed or losing your personality. It's about creating space by releasing the unnecessary weight, the old baggage, the rigid beliefs, the constant judgments, so that you can be open, receptive, and present. The benefits of an empty mind are profound. Openness and receptivity. An empty mind is ready to receive new information, new experiences, and new perspectives without resistance. Clarity and focus. With less clutter, your mind becomes clearer, allowing for greater concentration and understanding. Increased creativity and insight. New ideas have space to emerge and connect in unexpected ways. Presence. An empty mind is fully available to experience the richness of the present moment, leading to greater joy and appreciation. Inner peace. Releasing mental baggage reduces stress, anxiety, and internal conflict, leading to a natural state of peace. Adaptability and resilience. Without rigid contents, the mind becomes more flexible and able to navigate change and challenges with greater ease. authentic connection. An empty mind can truly listen to and receive others without filtering everything through its own judgments and assumptions. The Zen master's simple analogy of the cup is a powerful invitation. It asks us to look honestly at what we are carrying and to consider the possibility that the very things we think define us or protect us might actually be the things preventing us from receiving the fullness of life. The path is not about filling your cup higher and higher with knowledge or experiences. It is about the courageous and liberating practice of emptying it again and again. Emptying the old, the stale, the unnecessary, the rigid, the heavy. Emptying it, not to be vacant, but to be ready. Ready for whatever tea life chooses to pour next. Ready to receive the present moment fully. Ready to learn, to grow, and to simply be. Look at your mind. What needs to be poured out? What baggage are you ready to set down? Begin the practice of emptying your cup and discover the boundless potential that arises from a mind that is open, spacious, and ready for anything. That is the lesson of the empty mind. That is the path to receiving the true meaning. For centuries, humanity has pondered the great questions. Is there a heaven? Is there a hell? Are they places we go after we die, rewards for a life well lived, or punishments for our misdeeds? We imagine pearly gates and fiery pits, celestial choirs and tormented souls. This idea of external destinations, of judgment and consequence waiting for us beyond this life, is deeply ingrained in many cultures and belief systems. But what if the most significant heaven and hell aren't waiting for you in some distant afterlife? What if they are far closer than you think? What if they are not places you go to, but states you inhabit? What if the gates to both are not guarded by celestial beings, but are located within the landscape of your own mind? This is the challenging, direct, and ultimately liberating insight offered by the Zen story known as the Gates of Paradise. It's a story that strips away our externalized notions of reward and punishment and points us directly to the power of our own internal state. The story is simple, featuring two contrasting figures, a fierce warrior and a humble spiritual teacher. It is said that a great samurai warrior, a man known for his strength, his discipline, his courage in battle, but perhaps also for his pride and his quick temper, came to a Zen master. This samurai was a man of action, accustomed to direct answers and clear paths. He was grappling with the ultimate questions of existence. He stood before the master, his imposing figure perhaps filling the doorway of the master's simple dwelling, and asked directly, "Master, tell me, is there a paradise? And is there a hell?" He expected perhaps a teaching on morality, a description of the afterlife, or instructions on how to live a virtuous life to attain the former and avoid the latter. The master, a small, unassuming figure, looked up at the powerful warrior. He paused for a moment, observing the samurai's stern face, his rigid posture, the sword at his side. Then the master spoke, but not with the expected answer. Instead, he spoke with deliberate, cutting words designed to provoke. "You," the master said, his voice sharp, "you are nothing but a crude, ignorant ruffian. You are not fit to ask about paradise or hell." The samurai was stunned. He, a renowned warrior, a man of honor and discipline, called an ignorant ruffian? His face flushed with indignation. His eyes blazed with sudden, intense anger. His hand instinctively went to the hilt of his sword, drawing it halfway from its scabbard. His breath came in sharp gasps. His mind filled with rage, ready to strike down the insolent monk who dared to insult him so grievously. The air in the room grew thick with his fury. The master looked directly into the samurai's enraged eyes, felt the palpable anger radiating from him, saw the sword being drawn, and said calmly, This is hell." The samurai froze. The master's words, delivered in that moment of explosive rage, struck him with the force of a physical blow. He saw himself, consumed by anger, ready to kill over an insult. And in that instant, he understood. He saw the truth of the Master's statement. His own fury, his pride, his readiness for violence, that was the very essence of a living hell, a state of torment created entirely within himself. The realization washed over him. His anger dissipated as quickly as it had flared. His hand released the sword hilt. His posture softened. He lowered his head, his face now showing humility and deep respect. He felt a profound sense of awe and gratitude towards the Master who had risked his life to show him such a truth. Tears welled in his eyes. His heart filled with a sudden, overwhelming feeling of peace, relief, and reverence. The Master looked at the transformed warrior, felt the shift in his energy, saw the humility and gratitude in his eyes, and said gently, "And this is paradise. And that is the story." The Master didn't describe external realms. He didn't give instructions for the afterlife. He used the samurai's own immediate, lived experience to point to the truth. He provoked the samurai into manifesting the state of hell within himself, and then, through the samurai's subsequent realization and transformation, revealed the state of paradise. Let's unpack this powerful teaching. The samurai represents us. He is a person living in the world, facing its challenges, driven by his nature and conditioning, his pride, his quick temper. He is seeking understanding about the ultimate nature of reality, about good and evil, reward and punishment. The monk represents the teacher, the wise one, the one who sees beyond conventional understanding. He doesn't give a theoretical answer. He creates an experience. The insult is the trigger, the first arrow. It's the external event that, when met with internal reaction, reveals the state of mind. Hell is not a place of external fire and torment, but the internal state created by negative emotions and reactions. Anger and rage, as the samurai experienced, uncontrolled anger, is a torment. It burns you from the inside, clouds your judgment, and drives destructive behavior. Pride and ego. The samurai's pride was wounded by the insult, leading to his rage. Excessive ego creates a fragile sense of self that is easily disturbed by external opinions or perceived slights, leading to suffering. Fear. Fear can be a living hell, trapping you, limiting you, filling your mind with worst-case scenarios. Hatred and resentment. Holding on to hatred or resentment towards others is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It creates a toxic internal environment. Jealousy and envy. These emotions fill the mind with bitterness and a sense of lack, creating a state of internal turmoil. Greed and attachment. The relentless craving for more and the suffering that comes from the fear of loss or the inability to satisfy endless desires can be a hellish trap. Confusion and delusion. Being lost in misunderstanding, denial, or a distorted view of reality can be a deeply unsettling and painful state. These states are not punishments inflicted from the outside. They are conditions we create within ourselves through our reactions to life. When we are consumed by these emotions, we are, in that moment, living in hell. Our experience is one of suffering, turmoil, and disconnection. Paradise is not a place of external bliss and reward, but the internal state created by positive emotions, understanding, and release. Humility. The samurai's humility after his realization opened the door to paradise. Releasing the grip of ego and pride creates space for peace. Gratitude. The overwhelming feeling of gratitude the samurai felt is a state of paradise. Focusing on appreciation shifts the internal landscape from lack and resentment to richness and contentment. Peace and serenity. The calm that follows the storm of emotion is a taste of paradise. It is the natural state of a mind free from turmoil. Compassion. Extending kindness, and understanding towards yourself and others dissolves the boundaries created by judgment and anger, connecting you to a state of grace. Love and connection. Feeling connected to others and experiencing unconditional love is a state of profound well-being. Clarity and understanding. The moment of insight, the shedding of delusion, brings a sense of relief and clear seeing that is paradisiacal. Acceptance. Accepting reality as it is without resistance frees you from the suffering caused by fighting against what is. These states are also not external rewards. They are conditions we cultivate within ourselves. When we are able to access and inhabit these emotions and perspectives, we are, in that moment, living in paradise. Our experience is one of peace, connection, and well-being. The Master's simple words, "This is hell," and this is paradise, point directly to the truth that these realms are not geographically located destinations, but the immediate, felt experience of our own consciousness, shaped by our reactions and our state of mind. The samurai, by being provoked into a state of rage, experienced hell. By having that state named and recognized, and then releasing it through realization and humility, he immediately shifted into experiencing paradise. The gates were not miles away. They were the threshold between his reactive, ego-driven mind and his clear, understanding heart. This teaching has profound implications for our daily lives. Every day we encounter situations that could potentially lead us towards our personal hell or paradise. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Do you react with explosive anger, hell, or do you take a breath and let it go, a step towards paradise? You receive harsh criticism. Do you spiral into shame and defensiveness, hell? Or do you listen for any truth and release the rest with equanimity, a step towards paradise? You experience a setback. Do you fall into despair and self-pity, hell? Or do you accept the reality and look for the lesson with resilience, a step towards paradise? You witness suffering. Do you turn away in fear or indifference, a form of hell? Or do you open your heart with compassion, a step towards paradise? You achieve a success. Do you become arrogant and look down on others, hell? Or do you feel gratitude and share your good fortune, a step towards paradise? The story teaches us that we carry the potential for both hell and paradise within us at all times. Our state of mind, our reactions to the inevitable ups and downs of life, are the keys that open one gate or the other in any given moment. We don't have to wait until we die to find out where we're going. We are creating our heaven or hell right here, right now, with every thought we entertain and every emotion we cling to. How can we apply this teaching and choose paradise more often? Become aware of your internal state. Pay attention to your emotions and thoughts throughout the day. When you feel anger, fear, judgment, or resentment, recognize it immediately. This is the first step towards not getting lost in hell. Recognize the gates. See challenging situations or triggering interactions as potential gates. They are moments where you have a choice in how you will react and what internal state you will cultivate. Pause before reacting. Just like in the two arrows story, create a space between the external trigger, the insult, the setback, and your internal reaction. In that pause, you have the power to choose. Name your state. If you find yourself consumed by anger or worry, silently say to yourself, "This is hell." Naming the state can help you recognize its nature and detach from it slightly. Cultivate compassion and humility. Actively practice seeing situations from others' perspectives and releasing the need for your ego to be right or superior. These are key qualities that open the gate to paradise. Practice gratitude. Regularly focus on what you are grateful for. This consciously shifts your internal state towards one of abundance and peace, which is the essence of paradise. Meditate. Meditation trains your mind to observe its own contents without being swept away by them. This builds the capacity to recognize the states of hell as they arise and choose not to enter them fully. Focus on the present moment. Hell and paradise are often created by dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. Bringing your attention back to the simple reality of the present moment, which is often neutral or even pleasant, pulls you out of the mentally constructed states of suffering. The master's response to the samurai was dangerous, but it was effective because it wasn't just words. It was a direct experience. He showed the samurai his own hell and his own paradise. The story of the gates of paradise is a profound reminder that the ultimate battleground is not in the external world, but within your own mind. The most significant rewards and punishments are not meted out by an external judge, but are the natural consequences of the mental and emotional states you choose to inhabit. You have the keys to the gates. Every moment offers you the choice. Will you allow anger, fear, and judgment to lead you into hell? Or will you cultivate peace, compassion, and gratitude to open the gates to paradise, right here, right now? The choice is yours. The gates are within. Have you ever looked at someone else's life? Perhaps someone with more money, more power, more fame, or seemingly less problems than you, and thought, if only I could be like them. If only I had what they have, then I would be happy. Then I would be content. Then my life would be perfect. It's a common feeling, isn't it? This sense that happiness, power, or fulfillment lies somewhere outside of ourselves, in a different status, a different role, a different set of circumstances. We compare ourselves to others and see what we lack, wishing we could trade places, believing that their position is inherently better or stronger than our own. We chase after what we perceive as powerful, wealth, authority, recognition, thinking these things will make us secure, significant, and finally, happy. But what if true power, true security, and true contentment are not found by becoming something else, but by understanding and accepting who and what you already are? This is the timeless wisdom revealed in the Zen story of the stonecutter. It's a story that takes us on a journey through different levels of perceived power, only to bring us back to a surprising truth about where real strength and value reside. The story begins with a simple stonecutter. He spent his days in the hot sun, hammering away at rocks, cutting and shaping stones. It was hard, demanding work, and he earned just enough to live. The stonecutter was not happy. He was discontented with his lot in life. He looked at himself, covered in dust, weary from labor, and felt a deep sense of dissatisfaction. He compared himself to others and wished for something more, something better, something he perceived as truly powerful. One day, as he was working under the scorching sun, sweating and tired, he saw a rich merchant pass by in a luxurious carriage, fanned by servants. The merchant looked cool, comfortable, and important. The stonecutter thought, "Oh, how I wish I were a rich man. They are powerful and respected. They don't have to work under the hot sun. If only I were a rich man, I would be happy." And miraculously, his wish was granted. He found himself transformed into a rich man. He had fine clothes, lived in a grand house, and enjoyed every luxury. He no longer had to work in the sun. He felt powerful and content. But one day, a prince came to visit the city. The prince arrived with a magnificent entourage, soldiers marching before and behind him, banners flying. The rich man saw that the prince was treated with even greater deference and respect. People bowed down before him. The prince had authority that the rich man, with all his wealth, did not possess. The rich man thought, "Being a rich man is good, but a prince is even more powerful." People bow down to him. If only I were a prince, I would be truly powerful and happy. And miraculously, his wish was granted. He was transformed into a prince. He lived in a palace, commanded soldiers, and everyone bowed down to him. He felt immensely powerful. But one day, as he sat in his palace, he felt an intense heat. He looked up and saw the sun shining brilliantly in the sky. The sun's rays were so powerful that they dried up the rivers, scorched the earth, and made everyone, even the prince in his palace, feel its immense heat. The prince realized that the sun's power was far greater than his own. The prince thought, "The sun is more powerful than a prince. It can scorch the earth and make rivers dry. If only I were the sun, I would be the most powerful of all and truly happy." And miraculously, his wish was granted. He was transformed into the sun. He shone down with all his might, scorching the earth, drying up the rivers, and feeling his immense power over everything below. But then, a cloud began to form in the sky. The cloud grew larger and thicker, and soon it drifted in front of the sun, blocking its rays. The sun shone, but the cloud prevented its light and heat from reaching the earth. The sun realized that the cloud had power over him. The sun thought, "The cloud is more powerful than the sun. It can block my rays. If only I were a cloud, I would be more powerful and truly happy." And miraculously, his wish was granted. He was transformed into a cloud. He floated in the sky, blocking the sun's rays, and felt his power. He gathered moisture and became heavy. Then the cloud began to rain. It poured down upon the earth. But the rain fell upon a vast, unmoving mountain. The rain beat down, but the mountain stood firm, unaffected by the downpour. The cloud rained and rained, but it could not move the mountain. The cloud realized that the mountain was more powerful than he was. The cloud thought, "The mountain is more powerful than a cloud. It stands firm against the rain. If only I were a mountain, I would be the most powerful of all and truly happy." And miraculously, his wish was granted. He was transformed into a mountain. He stood tall and unmoving, unaffected by wind or rain, feeling his immense, solid power. But then he heard a sound, a chipping, a hammering, a steady rhythm against his side. He felt a tiny, persistent force chipping away at his stone. He looked down and saw a small figure, a man with a hammer and chisel, working at his base, cutting away pieces of rock. The mountain realized that even he, the mighty mountain, was being shaped and worn away by the persistent work of the stonecutter. And in that moment, the mountain thought, "The stonecutter is more powerful than the mountain. He can chip away at me and change my form. If only I were a stonecutter, I would be truly powerful." And miraculously, his wish was granted. He was transformed back into the stonecutter, standing in the sun, hammer and chisel in hand, ready to work. And this time, the stonecutter was content. He had journeyed through all the forms of power he had envied, wealth, authority, the forces of nature, only to discover that the persistent, focused effort of the humble stonecutter had the power to shape even the mightiest mountain. He realized that the power he sought was not in being something else, but in the quiet strength and capability of his own nature and his own work. He accepted himself and found value in his own existence. Let's unpack the profound lessons hidden within this simple cycle of transformation. The stonecutter's initial discontent is a powerful starting point because it's so relatable. It represents the human tendency to feel dissatisfied with our current circumstances, to compare ourselves to others, and to believe that happiness or power exists in a different state or title. We often look upwards on some perceived ladder of success or status and wish we were higher, believing that the view from there is inherently better. The wishes and transformations represent our pursuit of external power and status. The stonecutter seeks wealth, then authority, then the overwhelming force of nature, sun, cloud, and finally, unyielding solidity, mountain. These are common human desires: to be rich, to be in charge, to control the environment, to be unshakable. We believe these things grant ultimate power and therefore ultimate happiness. The hierarchy of perceived power in the story reflects how we often rank things in the world. A rich man seems more powerful than a laborer. A prince seems more powerful than a rich man. The forces of nature seem more powerful than human authority. A mountain seems more enduring than fleeting weather. Each step up the ladder seems to bring the stonecutter closer to ultimate, unassailable power. The turning point comes with the mountain. The mountain represents what seems like the ultimate, unyielding, powerful entity. It stands against the elements, solid and immense. It is the peak of the stonecutter's aspirations for external, static power. But then, the story circles back. The return to the stonecutter is the revelation. The seemingly insignificant humble stonecutter, with his simple tools and persistent effort, has the power to shape even the mighty mountain. His power is not in static mass or overwhelming force, but in focused action, persistence, and the ability to transform. The core lesson of the story is multifaceted, pointing towards self-acceptance and finding value within. True power is not always where you think it is. The story subverts the conventional hierarchy of power. The rich man is subject to the prince to the sun to the cloud to the mountain. But the mountain is subject to the stonecutter. The greatest power shown is not in being the biggest, the richest, or the most imposing, but in the ability to act with focused intention and persistence. External status is fleeting and limited. Each state the stonecutter wished for was eventually overcome by something else. Wealth was overcome by authority, authority by natural force by greater natural force. External power is always relative and vulnerable to something else. Contentment comes from within, not from status. The stonecutter only found contentment when he returned to his original state, but with a new understanding. His unhappiness wasn't inherent in being a stonecutter. It was in his desire to be something else, his lack of acceptance of his current reality, and his belief that happiness lay elsewhere. Your current position has its own unique power. The story highlights the specific power inherent in the stonecutter's role, the power to shape, to create, to transform through diligent work. Every role, every position in life has its own unique capabilities and value. The stonecutter's power was in his hands, his tools, and his persistence, not in a title or a fortune. Comparison is a trap. The stonecutter's journey began with comparing himself to others and feeling inadequate. The story shows that chasing after what others have is a never-ending cycle, as there will always seem to be something or someone more powerful. Value lies in your nature and action. The stonecutter's power wasn't in being a mountain, but in his action as a stonecutter. Our value and power are often found not in our titles or possessions, but in our inherent nature, our skills, our effort, and our ability to contribute in our unique way. Self-acceptance is liberation. The moment the stonecutter accepted his role with new understanding, he found contentment. True freedom comes from accepting who you are, where you are, and finding the power and value within that state, rather than constantly wishing to be somewhere or someone else. In our modern world, it's easy to fall into the stonecutter's initial trap. We are bombarded with images of wealth, success, and influence. We compare our ordinary lives to curated highlights, reels, and feel a similar discontent. We might wish for a different job, a bigger house, a different body, more followers, more recognition, believing these external changes will bring happiness and a sense of being enough. The story of the stonecutter reminds us to pause in this endless striving. It asks us to look closely at our own hands, our own work, our own unique place in the world, and to recognize the power and value that are already present. How can we apply the wisdom of the stonecutter in our lives and cultivate self-acceptance? Become aware of comparison. Notice when you are comparing your life, your possessions, your status, or yourself to others. Recognize this as the beginning of the stonecutter's discontent. Identify what you are carrying. What are the wishes you are holding on to? What states of being or external achievements do you believe will finally make you happy or powerful? Find the power in your present role. Look for the unique capabilities, contributions, and value in your current situation, whatever it is. What is the chipping away that you are uniquely positioned to do? How does your work, your presence, your nature shape the world around you, even in small ways? Practice gratitude for what is. Shift your focus from what you lack or what you wish you were to appreciating the value and capabilities you already possess and the life you are already living. Define power and success internally. Challenge external definitions of power, wealth, status, fame. Define them for yourself based on your values, your integrity, your ability to contribute, and your inner peace. Focus on persistent effort. Like the stonecutter's hammer and chisel, recognize the power of consistent, focused effort in your own tasks and goals, regardless of how humble they may seem. Small, persistent actions can shape even mountains. Cultivate self-compassion. Be kind to yourself and accept your current state without harsh judgment. Recognize that the journey of life involves being many things, and each stage has its own lessons and value. The stonecutter's journey is a metaphor for the spiritual path itself, a journey that often leads us back to where we started, but with completely new eyes. He didn't need to become the rich man, the prince, the sun, the cloud, or the mountain to find power. He needed to fully inhabit being the stonecutter, with a new understanding of the inherent strength and value in that state. You don't need to be someone else to be powerful or content. The capacity to shape your life, to find meaning, and to experience peace is not found by chasing external titles or accumulating more things. It is found by accepting yourself, recognizing the unique power of your own nature, and finding value in the work of your own hands and heart, right where you are. Stop wishing to be the mountain. Embrace the power of the stonecutter within you.